Welcome back to this second part of our virtual tour of the Shwedagon Pagoda. In this video, we will explore Burmese culture by investigating the creatures of Burmese myth, legend, and folklore represented in the art of the Shwedagon. All throughout the pagoda, there are images of many creatures from Burmese folklore. Some of these creatures are still believed to exist on some level by many Burmese people, while others are generally believed to be entirely fictional. It's very normal for the gateways to Burmese pagodas to be flanked by a pair of chinthe. Chinthe just means lion in Burmese, but possibly because there were never any lions in Burma, and because the Burmese people only heard about lions from India, lions in Burmese stories often have powers that biological lions do not have. For example, the ability to talk with humans or have human children by mating with a human. For this video, I'm going to use the word chinthe when talking about the mythological lions of Burmese folklore to differentiate them from the biological lions that once roamed widely across the old world. The Hintha bird is a sort of golden mythological bird whose arrival is said to be especially auspicious. Many cities and pagodas around Burma have their origin stories begin when a monk or ruler seeing a Hintha bird decides to build a city or pagoda on that spot. The most famous example of this that I know is, long ago when the Mon people were nomadic and traveled from place to place, the ruler saw a female Hintha bird perched on the back of a male Hintha bird, who himself was standing on a small island in the middle of a lake. The Mon ruler then decided to found the city of Bago on that spot, which eventually grew to become the capital of the Mon kingdom of Hintha. The Naga are a race of snake people that live in deep caves or underwater. They can shape change, spit fire, breathe underwater, live for hundreds of years, turn invisible, and move through the air and earth as if it were water. But even though Naga have human-level intelligence, they cannot become monks. I heard a story once in which a Naga approached Gautama Buddha and asked him to ordain it as a monk. The Buddha said it was impossible for a Naga to be a monk, but said that the Naga would be reborn in his next life as a human male, so it could become a monk then. It's said that, in the 6th of his last 10 lives before being born as Gautama, the Buddha was a Naga prince. People born on Saturdays, such as myself, are said to have a special connection with Nagas, and with snakes in general. Some people believe that Saturday-born people were Nagas in a recent past life. If a Naga and a human reproduce, the child will be human, but will probably be Saturday-born. Some tour guides like to translate Naga as dragon, but I think they're different enough to be called their own special creature. Naga are just Naga. I heard a sad story recently from someone who said that sometimes when a child suddenly goes missing, its parents might console themselves by saying that the child was really a Naga who had shape-changed into a human child, and that it had left to return to its Naga family. Some Saturday-born people believe that they have Naga relatives, still alive from a recent past life. Sometimes, if a person thinks he has a special connection to a Naga, he will pray to them to ask them for special favors. I've been told that Naga are especially helpful at helping people to find buried treasure, since Nagas both live underground, where buried treasure is, and because they don't use money themselves. Like regular snakes, Naga enjoy drinking milk. Since Naga like to live underwater, sometimes special Naga worshipping ceremonies involve dumping huge amounts of milk into the river for them to drink. There is a story that once, when Gautama Buddha was meditating in a forest, it started to rain. At that time, the Naga King was in the area, and to protect the Buddha from getting wet, he coiled under him so that he could sit, while opening his neck frills to shield the Buddha from the rain. I once gave a wooden carving of this scene to some friends on the other side of the world, but they said it gave them a bad feeling, and they donated it to a local library. What do you think of this scene? These statues look cool, but their meaning is obscure. One local friend of mine speculated that, since the lion is supposed to be the king of the animals, he sometimes needs to be unnecessarily aggressive and fight with other creatures in order to make his position at the top clear. Another local friend told me that there are people in the countryside who still have a tradition that, before they die, a person with magical powers might try to trap a Naga in order to compel the Naga's spirit to protect his tomb after his death. And he said that these statues allude to that process. Before Central Asian Greek communities began producing sculptures of the Buddha, Buddhist communities would represent him in more abstract ways, such as by a footprint like this. These sort of representations are probably the oldest method of representing the Buddha and his teachings. People believe that the water that collects and drips into this footprint comes from a Naga, and believe that drinking it will improve your health. These creatures, Belu, are analogous to Rakshasa in Hinduism, but their traditions are not exactly the same. They are usually represented like orcs, and sometimes tour guides translate their name as ogres, though this is an imprecise translation. People say that there are two types of Belu. Most Belu are evil and carnivorous, especially preferring human flesh. That type of Belu has straight fangs. However, some Belu are good and herbivorous, especially preferring to eat fruit and flowers. That type of Belu has curved fangs. In order to hunt their prey better, evil Belu are known to both shape change and turn invisible. I once hiked through the mountains in a remote area of Shan State and camped for a few days in villages that had no electricity or running water. There, the people told me stories about how, even today, there are people in the hills who still worship an evil Belu, allowing it to eat one child a year in order to protect the people in those villages. I always assumed that this belief was a way of rationalizing the very high rate of infant mortality that I assumed must exist in those remote areas. One of the things that the Shwedagon Pagoda is famous for is the number of Manuthiha statues on its grounds. A Manuthiha looks similar to a sphinx, half human and half lion, but instead of one lion body, it actually has two lion bodies. I've heard two stories of Manuthiha, its origin, and how or why to use its image. The story of the Manuthiha's origin is a bit like Oedipus's story, but meaningfully different. One day, a long time ago, somewhere in Lower Burma where the Mon people lived, there was a princess who liked to go hiking in the forests. One day, while she was traveling through the wilderness, a huge Chinthe appeared. It killed and ate her friends, but because it thought she was attractive, it offered her a deal. In exchange for not eating her, the princess had to agree to be the Chinthe's mate. Since the woman didn't want to get eaten, she agreed. Eventually, the woman began to miss her family, and she asked the Chinthe if she could go to visit them. The Chinthe cared about her and didn't want her to be sad, so he allowed her to leave as long as she promised to return. Of course, the princess promised to return but didn't once she had escaped the Chinthe. The Chinthe became very angry after he realized that he had been tricked, so he made it his mission to terrorize the countryside and became famous for hunting and eating any travelers he could find. Meanwhile, the princess had become pregnant and gave birth to the Chinthe's baby, a normal human boy. He grew up to be strong and brave, and after he became a man, he swore to go out into the wilderness to hunt the monstrous Chinthe. He eventually found the Chinthe and slew it. When he returned to the palace, his mother was distraught and told him that actually, the Chinthe her son had killed was his own father. After this, the man became obsessed with Chinthe and began carving them in the entrances of every pagoda, beginning the tradition that now exists everywhere in Myanmar. Eventually, he became so obsessed that he prayed to become like his father. One day, he felt a strong pain in his head, fell unconscious, and when he awoke, he had become the first Manuthiha. A second story of the Manuthiha that I've heard is, a long time ago there was a king and a queen who wanted to have a child. But as soon as the child was born to them, a Belu would sneak into the child's room and eat it. The couple asked a famous Buddhist monk what they could do to prevent their child from being eaten by a Belu, and the monk said to make an image of Manuthiha around the child in its room, since Belu are scared of Manuthiha. It worked, and so today, people who are scared that a Belu might eat their children will place an image of a Manuthiha on or around their children to protect them. An old man once told me that this statue was a representation of the Manuthiha's father. Apparently, he wasn't a normal Chinthe. He was like a Manuthiha, but with a normal lion's upper body. A Pyinsa rupa is a sort of chimeric animal made from a combination of body parts from several animals, but the exact type and number of animal isn't consistent among its depictions. Common animal parts that a Pyinsa rupa is made of might include the trunk and tusks of an elephant, the horns of a deer, the hooves of a bull, the body of a carp, and the wings of a bird. The only interesting story of the Pyinsa rupa that I've heard is that its image was created by a monk to protect children from being stalked and eaten by a Belu, since Belu are scared of Pyinsa rupa in the same way that they are scared of Manuthiha. Galone are humanoid birds. They're somewhat analogous to the Hindu god Garuda, but are a race of creatures rather than a single spiritual being. Unlike some magical creatures like Naga and Belu, most modern Burmese people don't believe in Galong anymore, and consider them mythological. Like Garuda, Galong are notorious for their antagonism towards Naga. I only know one story that was told to me about Galong. The story goes that one day, the Galone King fell in love with the queen of the Naga, so he murdered her husband, the Naga King, and abducted her. Fortunately for the Naga Queen, Naga can live for a long time, maybe 500 to 600 years, while Galong only have normal human lifespans, and when the Galong King eventually died, the Naga Queen was able to escape. After her escape, the Naga Queen wanted to find her husband, the Naga King, who she knew had been reincarnated in modern times as a human man somewhere in Burma. Eventually, she shape-changed into a human woman and went into the area with the intention of convincing her old husband to leave the human world and live with her again. Unfortunately, there were some problems. Because the man had no knowledge of his past life, he didn't believe her at first. One problem was that the Galong King had also been reincarnated as a human man in the same area. And when he saw the Naga King and Queen together again, he again wished to steal her from him just as he did before. Another problem was the many other girls who also wanted to marry the Naga King, and his mother, who pressured him to marry a rich girl and not to trust the Naga Queen. In the end, the Naga King went to a monastery for guidance and was told by an old monk there about his past life. The monk told the man that the Naga Queen was telling the truth, and went around to the Galong King and the Naga King's mother and told them what had happened and how they could atone for their errors. The Naga King, wanting to escape from the drama, decided to abandon his worldly life and become a monk. But later, when his mother went looking for him in the monastery, all she could find where he had been was the trail of a large snake leading off into the wilderness. If you've gotten to the end of this tour, thank you for watching. If you want to correct or ask for clarification on something said in the video, please make your request in the comments. Subscribe to this channel to receive notifications for the subsequent video in this series. In our next video, we will explore the history and culture of Myanmar through examining the representations of nats, polytheistic godlike spirits whose belief exists in a state of syncretism with Buddhism in Myanmar, found on the grounds of the Shwedagon Pagoda.